podcast. Hey guys, today I'm talking about social anxiety. Now, recently in or recent times, we've been seeing an increase in things like social anxiety. I don't know if you can necessarily call it social anxiety, but basically, like the fear of social interactions, the fear of other people judging us, the fear of being the center of attention, all of these things are increasing and have been increasing for the past few years thanks to, I don't know, COVID or an increase in social media usage, an increase in technology usage, a decrease in social relationships, a decrease in socialization in general. All of these things can attribute to the way that we kind of view social relationships now. And so I think, yeah, definitely a lot of this stuff contributes to the I don't necessarily want to say social anxiety in a pathological sense, but like the anxiety that people feel within social situations. And so I kind of want to talk about it from my own perspective because this is something that I personally have dealt with for like my entire life. In a more pathological sense, like I said, there's kind of a difference there, but I think even if it is pathological, not pathological, it doesn't really matter. We can still apply the same concepts to talk about it. Okay, so what exactly is social anxiety? Social anxiety is a fear of having other people's attention drawn to you. So you don't want to be the center of attention because that center of attention might mean a bunch of different things for you, right? But generally speaking, like, yeah, it's just not wanting to be the center of attention, not wanting other people to be attentive toward you, whether it's looking at you, listening to you, whatever. And this doesn't necessarily count. It's more so I would say it's more so either in person. It has to do with social interactions, right? If you're videotaping a video and people are listening to that video, that's not necessarily going to trigger some sort of social anxiety. I think that might be something else. But okay, then why is it that there's a fear of attention of other people being on you? Why is it afraid of being the center of attention? Why is it a fear of all this attention? Well, that's because being the center of attention can cause you to feel a certain type of way. And so the best way that I can sort of describe this is like if you have a fear of other people having their attention drawn to you, you feel like you are in danger when that's happening. So if I'm sitting at a table with 10 other people and I'm quiet, but then there's a silence and then I start talking and all 10 people look at me, that can trigger something within me to make me feel like I'm in danger. It'll trigger that social anxiety. Everybody's looking at me, everybody's staring at me, all of these thoughts will rush through your head. Your sympathetic nervous system will increase in activity, your heart's going to start racing, all of this type of stuff, right? You get the adrenaline rush. But in reality, like the reason the people are looking at you is not because they want to put you in danger. It's because you started talking and you were silent. It's like when you walk into a room that's silent and you walk through the door and everybody stares at you. Everybody's not staring at you for any particular reason. It's like when somebody walks in a room, people just look at you. They look at the person that's walking in the room, and if that's you, everybody's gonna look at you, right? You're not really in danger, but there is this sense of like I'm in danger when all this attention is being put onto me. And then that, like I said, increases your sympathetic nervous system. Fight or flight response goes crazy and it makes you super uncomfortable. That's really important because when you're uncomfortable, then you want to avoid the thing that makes you uncomfortable. And so that uncomfortable feeling, that discomfort, will then cause us to change our behaviors, okay? So when people put their attention on us, it makes us feel like we're in danger. That makes us feel uncomfortable, and we don't want to go through that again. So, what do? We modify our behavior so that we don't have to go through that again. And what do we do? What does that mean, the modification of behavior? Well, that can take many different forms. It can, for example, it can be talking less. If I talk less, people will look at me less, they'll attend to me less, and then I won't have to deal with the uncomfortable feeling of feeling like I'm in danger, right? And you might have experienced this where you talk less, and then next time you go, like whenever you go to a social outing, people say, "Oh, you're so quiet. Oh, he's so quiet. He's such a quiet guy. Oh, this girl is so quiet. She's just quiet." You know what I mean? Maybe you've experienced that before. Changing your behavior to avoid being the center of attention can also look like going out of your way to avoid social interactions in general. Maybe you're walking down the street, you see somebody you know, but they don't see you, and you have a choice. Your mind tells you, "Hey, we should avoid this to avoid being uncomfortable." And so maybe you cross the street or something like that. You know what I mean? And then that way you're not going to run into them while you're walking down the sidewalk or whatever it is. Like you're going to avoid that social interaction, right? So I think the modification of behavior is like the consequence of feeling like you're in danger, okay? So basically, social anxiety, a fear of drawing the attention of other people, causes an increase in your heart rate, increase in respiration rate. It makes your mind race. All of this uncomfortable stuff then makes you feel like you're in. All this uncomfortable stuff is a result of feeling like you're in danger, and that causes us to change our behavior because we don't want to be the center of attention, because we don't want to be uncomfortable. We'll change our behavior for the future, and basically it starts to control our lives, right? And so, okay, how do we live with it then? Living with social anxiety is complicated, right? Because it's like any other mental, I don't want to say mental illness, it's like any other bad mental habit that we have, which is like we have to understand like the root of it, right? We have to understand why, where does this come from? Not even where does it come from. It's like what is causing this, right? Social anxiety in particular is an ego thing. Now, when I say ego, people think like ego is a positive, like ego is like when you increase the value of yourself, or you put yourself above others, or you make yourself feel like you're the best in the world and other people suck. But that's not necessarily what ego is. Ego can be positive or negative. It's like building yourself up or putting yourself down. That can be ego. I think that's the core problem with social anxiety is that there's a negative view of yourself and everybody's watching me, everybody's looking at what I'm doing, and I don't want them to do that because I'm ashamed or like I'm embarrassed or whatever it is. But it's a negative view of the self. That's pretty much what it is. And so to work through that, I think not to work through the negative self view, more so to work through the fear or the feelings of being in danger in social situations. I think it takes a lot of awareness. You have to notice when your social anxiety comes up. It's way easier said than done, but like an example would be again with the, let's say I'm sitting with 10 people at a table and everybody's silent and I start talking, everybody looks at me. That's going to trigger the social anxiety again, right? Because now I'm the center of attention. But in that moment, you can give in to the social anxiety, or you can sort of zoom out and you can be like, okay, this thing in my head is activating, this fear, this, like your fear center is going crazy, fight or flight. I feel like I'm in danger and I need to get out of here. I need to do something to get everybody's attention off of me. I can be aware of those feelings and I cannot give in to them. My mind can tell me we need to get out of here. We need to get out of here. But we don't actually need to get out of here. My mind is just feeling like this. My body is feeling these things and I don't actually have to change anything because I'm not actually in danger. Now, that can be hard because the it's a very rational thing. But our mind is not built to be rational. Our mind is not built to, especially, okay, so when our fight or flight is active like that, our mind is not built to be rational. Our mind is built to make split-second decisions, to, do things very quickly, because if you're in danger and your flight or fight is active, you're fighting for your life, or you're flighting for your life, I guess. So you have to be able to make snap decisions. You have to be able to think quickly. It's not really made for sitting there and analyzing something. For example, if you're being chased by a lion through the jungle, you're not going to stand there and be like, okay, if I take this pathway, maybe I can find somewhere to hide and maybe I can just wait it out. Or maybe if I go down this other pathway, maybe I'll find somebody to help me. Or if I go down this other pathway, like maybe I'll escape. No, you're not going to, that's not how it works. If you're being chased by a lion, you need to think at the drop of a hat. You can't just stand there and logically analyze the situation because you're going to get eaten. You're going to die if you do that. And that's, funny enough, the same exact system that is activating if you have social anxiety. You're going to feel like you're in danger, like you're dying, like you're going to die, like you need to think at the drop of a hat, like you need to make a decision now, but you don't. That's not the reality of the situation. The reality is you can just sit there and like think about it and kind of turn on the logical part of your brain and be like, okay, In reality, nothing's actually happening. People are looking at me, but it doesn't really mean that I'm in danger. Like, people just look at me because I open my mouth and I'm the one talking. It's not because they're analyzing me. It's not because they're judging me. It's not because I'm a piece of garbage and stupid and whatever. You know what I mean? So I think that is one of the most important things, is to be aware and reframe the situation as much as you can. Like I said, it's hard because our brain is not built to think logically in when your fight or flight system is active, but it can be a game changer. Another way to kind of try and live with this is, so this is more in like a one-on-one, or not necessarily a one-on-one, but like more so in a conversational aspect. If you're in a conversation, the focus that try and shift your focus to the person that you're talking to. So if I'm having a conversation with somebody, try and shift my focus to what they're saying. Focus on understanding them. Focus on hearing what they're saying, what they're telling you, you know, trying to have a conversation basically, instead of focusing on yourself or having attention on yourself. Because at the end of the day, social anxiety is a hyper awareness of social, I don't know, I would say social cues, social gestures, social situations. It's like a hyper awareness of what is going on. This person is looking at me. What does that mean? This person moved their hand. Now they're crossing their arms. What does that mean? I'm crossing my legs now. If I'm crossing my legs, do I look funny? Is there a hole in the bottom of my pants? Are they going to be able to see it? Can they see my balls through the crease of my pants? Like, you know what I mean? That's social anxiety, the hyper awareness of what's going on. And so trying to shift your focus to something else can help. Again, this is very hard depending on the intensity of the anxiety that you feel, but it can be something very helpful, and it can help you get through these situations. Okay, and now this is probably going to be my favorite part because I think it's super, super interesting. Does everybody have social anxiety these days? Like I said, COVID really probably messed up a lot of people's mm, social ability to socialize, social development for a lot of kids. When you're stuck on Zoom for 2 years, like, you're not gonna have the same social development as if you were actually in a classroom. You know what I mean? Being on Zoom, like, obviously it's not the exact same as being in an actual classroom with real people, interpreting social cues, interpreting, words and in-person things that happen when you're, in a classroom. And also with adults, it can cause an atrophy of your social skills. If you're on Zoom for 2 years, doing work meetings all the time, you're not in person, interacting with people in the office, talking to people, laughing with people, touching people, not like in a weird way, but like socially, right? There's not a lot of social gestures, not a lot of social cues. So yeah, your social skills can definitely atrophy over a year or two of not seeing people in person, or seeing people in person a lot less. I guess I should say. But with that being said, we have to think about, okay, what is social anxiety? Now, social anxiety is actually a pathological thing. I think it's hard to literally say people have more social anxiety because, well, I don't know if we can make that general statement about some sort of like actual disorder. You know what I mean? But I think it would be absolutely fair to say that there's an increase in self consciousness, being afraid of what other people think, and afraid of what other people might say if you do this, or how they might judge you if you do that. You know what I mean? There's definitely an increase in that sort of thing. And I think a lot of people can probably attest to this, but it also has to do with technology usage. Social media is very self-centered. How many likes am I getting? How many comments am I getting? You know what I mean? Who is liking my stuff? What are they saying in the comments? Everything is about me. Everything is centered on me. If I post, what are people saying about me? And that can make us more self-aware, self-conscious, afraid of what other people think, afraid of what other people might say. That can attribute to social anxiety. Another thing, just generally, people are socializing in person a lot less, I would say. Especially younger people. I don't know how old you guys are, but um I feel like, as someone who is like still kind of young, I think I socialize in person a lot less than previous generations probably did when they were my age. I don't go out to bars, I don't go out and drink. Not that going out to bars and drinking is necessarily bad, but like that was a social that was like a social get together that people had and things that people did when they were younger. And, I don't feel like I do that. And maybe I'm an outlier. I don't really know. But I think generally speaking, like the current generation of young adults and younger people are just socializing in person less. Like I said, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that that is the case. And I think that definitely attributes to an atrophy in socialization skills and a increase in fear of socializing in general, which, is kind of it's not social anxiety per se. Like I can't again, it's not I don't want to pathologize everything because like I think people do that enough on the internet, try to pathologize everything. Oh, I have this or I have this disorder. I have ADHD and depression and I can't focus, which means I need to start taking Adderall or whatever. You know what I mean? I don't necessarily want to start pathologizing, but I also want to be aware of like what is actually happening with people. Okay, so going back to the social media thing, social media makes us very self-centered and self-conscious about what other people think. We get in our own heads a lot. So I think it's important to get out of our own heads. Try to connect with other people. You know what I mean? Get out there, talk to people, sharpen your skills. You know what I mean? You can't, like, if you have social anxiety, it's never going to get better unless you get out there. You know what I mean? That's super important. And this kind of connects to this next point I want to make, which is don't let it control your life. And this goes beyond social anxiety. It goes to whatever sort of things that you struggle with mentally, emotionally, hell, even whatever circumstances in your life you might struggle with. I understand that certain things are hard to control, but like, you can't let things control your life. You know what I mean? And I'm going to use social anxiety as sort of the example for this, but you live your entire life being a slave to social anxiety. And it goes back to letting it modify your behavior. If I want to avoid the discomfort that social anxiety brings me, I'm going to talk less. And if I'm talking less, then I'm not really sharing things. You know what I mean? I'm not really interacting with people in an authentic way because the social anxiety is controlling my behavior. It's making me talk less. Therefore, going to change. I'm literally modifying my behavior because of social anxiety. It's controlling my life. But another way sort of to go about the situation is to, like I said, become more aware, acknowledge that social anxiety is there, acknowledge that it wants you to modify your behavior to bring attention to yourself less, and then act in spite of those feelings and thoughts. Talk more in spite of your social anxiety. Go out of your way to interact with people instead of going out of your way to not interact with people. Make yourself uncomfortable. You have to push your limits. Like I said, beyond social anxiety, if you're depressed, if there's other stuff that you struggle with, like, and I'm not saying it's easy. I really don't want to, I want to make it clear. I know that this stuff is hard to, because I know it's hard to deal with because I've had to deal with stuff like this. But I'm saying, like, you have to fight it. There is no other way to gain control of your life besides gaining control of your life, which is acting against what your mind wants you to do. Don't always act against what your mind wants you to do. Sometimes it's a good idea. Sometimes you should listen to your intuition. But I don't think that listening to anxiety is necessarily a good thing. Um, you have to learn to take control. You have to. It's essential, and it's something that we all have to learn. And unfortunately, I don't think that these feelings go away. I don't think that the desire to modify our behavior to avoid social situations will ever go away, unfortunately. Um, but I do think that you can get better at controlling it. You can get better at fighting against it, and you can take control of your life. So, anyway, that's it. And yeah.